This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, HMOTA. Welcome to the Home Modification Occupational Therapy Alliance meeting. And today we're going to be doing strategic planning with Brandon Seigel, who's who's partnering with us as a business coach to help take things to the next level. And I'm really excited about Brandon. I started working with him a few months ago, and I feel like it's helped me out with my business and building HMOTA. And I want to just apply his business savvy to not only HMOTA, but also to all of our businesses, because I think it will help move us all along and move us to the next level. We've done a great job of knocking the physical therapists out of the home mod picture. They're still struggling a bit, but we're way in front of them. We're getting a lot more recognition as home mod OTs. We're getting a lot more power as HMOTA. It's getting us up to the table with Meals on Wheels, area agencies on aging, a lot of other just big networks. We were able to get partnerships with Harmar, with TJ Ramp, and some other suppliers. And I mean, it's just given us a lot of power, but there's a lot more to do. So I just want to remind everyone of our mission to promote OT leaders in the field of home modifications and to develop a lucrative business model for home mod OTs. So, we can make some serious, a great living instead of just a basic living off of home mods, because we should. So without further ado, let me introduce Brandon. And Brandon, why don't you go ahead and give yourself and do a little bit of an introduction as well.
Sure. Well, thank you all for being here. It really is a pleasure. I want to make sure, Karen, can you hear me okay? Perfect. I have so many different mic setups, and so I made a shift in the middle. But a little bit about me, just so you know, for the last over 15 years, I've been supporting entrepreneurs in healthcare industry, wellness, education, and even ground up construction. I've been in commercial ground up development, helping developers scale their businesses, everything from work live lofts to shopping malls to private home developments, etc. And so it's interesting that this has come as a cornerstone, because literally the last 12 plus years I've been supporting private practice entrepreneurs primarily in healthcare. And in recent years, I've worked with some home modification practices and businesses and whatnot. But Karen and I connected, and we see things through such a synergistic viewpoint. And so a little bit about me: I own, operate, and run several private practices. I also have a deconstructed MSO where I specialize in working with private practitioners, physicians, occupational therapists, physical therapists, functional medicine, all different small business types, ranging even into holistic medicine. My specialty is operations. I am not an OT, but I am married to one. My wife, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law are all occupational therapists. I am the only one that I know of that AOTA has endorsed, not just me, but also my book, who's not an occupational therapist. My vision for HMOTA is that in 2021, we really disrupt the industry on a whole nother level, because I find that OTs are missing a huge market. And even just like a couple weeks ago, I was working with someone and I showed one way that literally builders were promoting that they're not OTs and that they don't have the OT specialty. And I showed Karen and whatnot, and I said, this has to change, So in order to scale at your highest level, you ultimately need to be able to not just do something really well, but you need to be known and you need to have efficient ways to deliver it. So our goal for HMOTA is to really bring a recognition to this industry and to this specialty like nobody's business, and to build all of the infrastructure so that scalability is turnkey.
So I'm really hoping that we can really pull together on this. I had asked some people what they wanted to talk about, what they felt were stopping points. So we've got that to talk about later. But I guess right now where do we want to go? What is our vision? I personally would like to take over area agencies on aging, Meals on Wheels, and provide all the home modifications for them throughout the country using our OTs. But there's a lot to do with that. There's marketing, and there's also getting OTs up to the point where they can handle all of it, both business wise and as OTs. So, what are people's thoughts? Where do we want to go with this? And maybe this is something that you'd be better off leading us with, Brandon, as far as figuring out, where we want to go.
So I'm going to give you a vision, and some of you might not know it or be part of it. Obviously, I have no way of knowing every single person's story, and I hope over time I get to find that out. But there was, back in the day, for therapists that have been practicing for, still they may know it, but therapists who've been around either in private practice, outpatient, worked in rehab for the last 10 years or longer, there used to be, they're still around, but they're not what they were. There used to be a network that was the only way into the Blue Cross contract back in the day, called PTPN. And it was this network that basically they had every insurance at one point. They had the monopoly. And the reason why they had the monopoly was the insurances found that they were able to be a catalyst of the highest caliber rehab. And they were able to bring in and ensure the quality of care was at the highest level. Now, during this time, all of the insurance contracts were paying really top dollar. The outcomes were high. Providers were thrilled. All these things happened. PTPN fell apart and lost the market. My point in sharing this story is that there is an opportunity in a market that has not really been tapped into. And I believe HMOTA can really become the evaluation and resource for all home modification and aging in place. And I know Karen sometimes gets upset when I say aging in place, but I think that it's a doorway open to really get funding on a whole nother level, to bring together evidence-based practice, and to connect with, and I'm not talking Medicare. Everyone thinks of Medicare. I'm just being honest. I don't think Medicare is your funding source for this. I think we have to get beyond Medicare, and I think there's other ways to do this, but I think that HMOTA has an opportunity to become the one-stop shop for all funding sources in defining the way that home modification is supported, paid for, evaluated, even from an assessment standpoint, audits, all that kind of stuff. Because I think that if HMOTA can engage and have the largest network of OTs producing and facilitating quality work that's being measured, that's showing success, that has algorithmic data to it, then we have proof that we can go to these funding sources to say, you're losing money by not having one stream, one place to put all your referrals in. Now, one of the things I've been really good with is negotiating with payers. And payers look at everything from a monetary standpoint. So if I go to a payer, no matter what the payer is, and I say, look, I have 500 trained, licensed, certified practitioners all ready to support your home modification needs. Here's our data. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. And by utilizing us as your primary distribution network, you're going to save money on time, case management, resources, and you're going to get a higher caliber outcome with everything we do for you. Because there's consistency, there's continuity, there's case management that we bring to the table, and we will show you that our results give us this contract and we will earn that. And I guarantee you two things are going to happen. One is we're going to be able to take over the market penetration of home modification. But two is we're going to advocate for higher pricing because we get to toe the line on what the quality represents. Everyone always asks me, how do I negotiate with insurance and how do I negotiate with these things? It's all about two things: proving the outcome and proving the value that you're delivering and that you're saving that payer money in the long run. But everyone focuses on the emotional component. What they don't realize is funding is a business model. They want to know how they save time, money, and keep the people that they have to keep as healthy or happy as needed, but you have to be able to show the financial savings. I once had a big negotiation with United Healthcare and Optum Health. Anyone who knows them, they're one of the lower, most agonizing payer. I got them $38 up because I was able to show that I could discharge a patient faster than everyone else in their network while delivering patient outcomes and patient success at a higher level. And my point is they weren't just cared at the quality. I had to show them the fiscal financial benefit to them. And what I was able to do was provide my therapist with more time to deliver the outcome. So I was actually able to share that we could do less visits because we were able to do more within that session. So the bottom line is, I think HMOTA has this opportunity to build this landscape for the industry, connecting metrics, algorithmic data tied to outcomes, financial negotiation, and that we can ultimately run the country's needs as a home modification alliance. Karen, is that a good starting point?
That's exactly where we want to start. And I think, part of it's going to be just choosing what markets we want to start with as far as targeting. And, everybody, weigh in what you feel you think your the target should be as far as our markets go. But the other thing that concerns me, and for me, I would say workers' comp and the social agencies pick up these home mod metrics people as far as area agency on aging, Meals on Wheels, flood, that kind of thing, but then also keep picking up these workers' comp jobs. The other thing, though, we need to do that's vitally important, and part of the reason I wanted Brandon here is we need to get the individuals up to, ready to handle the business, but also HMOTA can't just do it by itself. We all have to work together to make this happen because, a rising tide floats all boats. I mean, that's the way it is. So, what this is really about is how we can work together to all accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Karen, some of the questions in the chat, is everything going, if we were to do something like this, like with anything that HMOTA would do, everything funnels through HMOTA?
Well, I mean, the contracts would all funnel through HMOTA because the problem is you can't just say we're HMOTA, we're Alliance of OTs, and then you get a job and they say, oh, and then say they get a job in Michigan and Functional Homes takes care of it. And so, yeah, they got it through HMOTA, but it was a Functional Homes therapist. It just muddies the water. And then the case manager doesn't talk about HMOTA, they talk about Functional Homes. We need them to talk about HMOTA to all their other case manager friends throughout the country. So when they have a job, they call HMOTA because Functional Homes isn't going to do it. Functional Homes is only in Michigan.
The idea is that you're building a network of consistency so that ideally this is not an overnight thing, but ideally what you're doing is you're building accountability, you're building consistency, you're building how you're tracking things, that there's templates that everyone's using, that you're building a network so that it's not 1,000 independent people trying to solve something, but it's one pipeline of things. It's not to say that you might not get business. Everyone has individual businesses that they're running, but the idea is that if you can run things through the funding sources connected to HMOTA, it's to your betterment. If we have practice management solutions that we can build infrastructure for, if there's consistency so that we have even like a certification process to those HMOTA members that are part of this tribe, again, strength is in numbers. All of you running independently right now, you're individual businesses, but the idea that there's a network of providers in which funding sources are processing through it. Now, again, PTPM was a credentialing and contracting body. So it wasn't that it necessarily the payments went through, whether the payments go through HMOTA or it's the credentialing and contracting and body of work and accountability that's being done by HMOTA. There's a cost. There's many different ways to structure it, but the idea is how do we build the engine versus having hundreds of us run independently in different directions.
Is that what you were thinking, Sherry? I mean, what are your thoughts?
No, I think it sounds inspiring and awesome, but I think there's a lot to think about. Like someone had mentioned, like would we have a training course so that we're all kind of running on the same platform? So we're offering a consistent product, and then also there'll be newbies. You know, people are going to join, and you know, so you almost probably are going to have like a YouTube education program or something. But I think it'd be great. I know a lot of people probably have reached out and had success with getting through to their agencies on aging. I think it depends on obviously what state you're in and city or whatever. I haven't had a lot of success, but I started all this like around COVID, so that explains that. But it sounds good. You know, I mean, I know that a lot of people, some people probably already have a good relationship with theirs and they wouldn't want to give it up. Maybe,
I don't think we're asking for anyone to give anything up at this point. So I just want to be clear. We're not trying to say roll your business into HMOTA. What we're really trying to do is really build an infrastructure around the alliance so that one day it can become the place where payers want to contract and utilize contracting through HMOTA, in which HMOTA is endorsing the providers that are part of the membership, and which we're building. You know, people who would qualify under this would be specifically through a network that have been gone through. There could be an application process. There could be a lot of pieces to it. So one of the ideas, and Karen, correct me if you don't want me to mention this, but do you want me to talk about the Creator Club idea just so that they understand the concept behind it? So
Which would be the membership tier of HMOTA, basically.
Yeah. So what we're looking to do eventually, you know, one of the things in 2021 that we want to build, so we want to start with a pilot of members that want to be part of this Creators Club, people that have experience, and we're going to build different, you know, status levels with training and mentorship, different infrastructure, so that one thing you don't know is we're already building a full LMS for HMOTA, which is a learning management system. So we'll be able to do fully custom videos, training, certificates, everything, all integrated within the HMOTA membership website that we're currently building out. But the idea of this Creators Club is really getting a handful of people that would be pilot members in regions, and who have experience, in which we will be working and co-creating with them, and that those people could be senior level over a region in which they support other regional members, etc. But the idea of these creators in the Creator Club is that they are pilot members in how we build this infrastructure, in terms of consistency, the systems we utilize, the different training protocols, the different templates, people that really want to build the next level of growth for both HMOTA and their practices themselves.
So this Creators Club, will that cost more money for the creators? And then will the creators get a salary or some type of payment to put in the hours to do the training and the mentorship in the different regions?
The idea is that the creators would be able to grow regions in which they're creating revenue within their business. It's not, again, I want to be very clear. We're not bringing employees in. The idea is that we're creating an infrastructure where private practices are tapping into all different shared resources, so that your business itself can grow through the affiliations that HMOTA is making, if that makes sense.
Kind of like a franchise. Like you're buying a franchise, but you're not buying.
I mean, I think it's easier to say a contracting and credentialing body is what I would say, more than a franchise. Because a franchise, you have to you are that company. You are, you know, McDonald's or whatever. HMOTA is trying to be an alliance. It's all private practices that are members of that alliance, but you're still going to be functional home or whatever. That private practice, that entity is not changing. It's just now you're part of HMOTA. You've been HMOTA credentialed, kind of like you're part of AOTA. Well, now you're part of HMOTA, except HMOTA is now bringing funding and referrals to you, if that makes sense.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask, because like AOTA, there's a governing board and, you know, positions rotate within the association. And I know like buyers groups for like appliances and all there, you know, there's a membership, there's a leadership. Is that what HMOTA is going for?
I think it should have a leadership board because I think that would help us be more consistent and make things work better. You know, this is all something that I'm really glad Brandon's here, but I mean, we need all of us to decide what we want, and he can help us build the vehicle to get that. We definitely, I would love to have a leadership board that would help make decisions, especially as money, I mean, HMOTA's starting to make money, so, you know, we do need to figure out budgeting, you know, as far as marketing and that sort of thing, what we want to do with that. But, you know, this is like what he's talking about with the Creators Club. We were talking about this in the workers' comp work group about how we would have one person who would be in charge of an area, and then we build up in that area. So for instance, again, I'm just using Michigan because that's where I'm at. So in Michigan, you know, we've already started the home mod metrics program. We've got three sites that we're running it on. We're going to start expanding it after the new year once we, you know, get rocking and rolling and have everything nailed down. But then we're also, you know, obviously we've got auto going, and I've got a bunch of attorneys. So I feel like I built this up in this area. Now let's choose a different area where somebody else can be in charge of it. But say if there's a specific OT who's in charge of, I don't know, Illinois, then we'll start building up their particular area, like say Chicago. And then as we start building outside of Chicago and you know, building more in the area of Illinois, then we'll have people, you know, that OT. I mean, I don't know how we got to figure this out, how we want to do this. But basically there's an OT who's in charge of Illinois. And then you start, you know, helping out the other OTs and mentoring the other OTs in Illinois. And it almost, you know, when Brandon and I were just first talking about this, he said, you know, let's teach other people how to do what you're doing. Well, that works in Michigan because I know how the different workers' comp works here, how the auto works here. I just picked up a couple health insurance companies that pay for home mods, but everything's so regional. So that's why we can't really build it up unless we know what tools are out there and we know what part of the market's out there. So that's where I was kind of thinking maybe if we had people who wanted to step up and be in charge in their area, then we could develop that area, but then they would also, you know, mentor the OTs beneath them, but then get a piece of what the OTs beneath them are doing as they grow. I don't know.
So somebody asked, what would you do if there are a bunch of OTs in one area?
Maybe a bunch of OTs in that area want to invest together in growing. You know, I don't know. We've got to. What are your ideas? I mean,
I'm the only OT doing this in Vermont, so I'm not worried about it.
Forget the whole thing.
I'm it.
So real quick, just so everyone knows. So today is really about presenting the concept and really about HMOTA is about you guys. You're the alliance. I'm here. Karen wanted me to be here, and I really want to help grow HMOTA in any way that I can contribute and bring my business expertise to all of you in any way that it makes sense for HMOTA. But we're also going to have a survey that's going to get sent out after to find out who really wants to even be considered and learn more about the Creators Club, in which we'll have a follow-up meeting on this. Today is really about starting to present the vision behind how we get what HMOTA was in 2020 and what we want HMOTA to be in 2021, and some strategies for financial growth for everyone in 2021. Is that fair to say, Karen?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask this to Sherry again. So like, let's just go with the area agency on aging, because I think every state, right, has that. So HMOTA would do like a marketing plan that we could introduce or would be put out to every agency on aging everywhere. And then if they want to use it and they have questions, then you would they would contact you guys or someone at HMOTA, whoever that is, and then they would send them to whatever state or whatever OT is trained and go from there.
I would want to pick out I would want an OT in the area who really, the thing is, running a home mod metrics program like Tori's doing over in Washington, D.C., and we're starting over here, it's a lot of work and it's hard. And it's not something you can just give to any old person. It's got to be somebody who's willing to spend that time and then work through the issues. I mean, it's not just here it is, run. I don't know. So that would be something if we set up in a specific area that OT would help develop it. And we'd have to figure out, exactly how we would want that to work. But HMOTA would have to hold the contract because it would be the Home Mod Metrics program, which is something that is completely research-based, that's developed by Tori, who's going to be working with us. I don't know if she's here or not today. She was going to try to make it. But that's not something, that's how I got into the Area Agency on Aging. They've known about me for a long time. And in fact, when I came to them with the Home Mod Metrics program, they knew me. But until I had this research-based program, they were just using me to install ramps here and there. Now they're using me for OT evaluations and a whole bunch of other construction stuff.
So like the Capable program that Johns Hopkins runs, I haven't done that, but I know it costs a lot of money to get trained to do things their way. Obviously, we're going to do it a little bit different because we're not Johns Hopkins and we're not looking to make tons of money. Like
we are looking to make tons of money. Just saying.
Well, for our practices and for
we got the same goal.
Yeah, but they're making money off of the people training to take the class versus, so like if somebody goes out and say you go out and you see clients in Illinois, or where are you, sorry, but if you make, let's just say $500 off of a job, is that your 500 completely, or are you putting a cut back to HMOTA?
HMOTA would definitely have to get a cut of it.
Mm-hmm.
HMOTA can't run just on what I make and put into it. Everybody, right. Everybody's going to use it to.
Yeah, that's how it should be, a percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how any good business would run.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. We need the money. I mean, I keep getting emails from people saying we need to market this, we need to market that, we need to do this, we need to do that. And it's just like, we need a team to do it. That's the only way that it's going to be successful. And we're OTs. That's where it's nice having Brandon, because, he's not an OT. His specialty is business. That's what we need. I can modify a house, but I can't do what he can do. So
it sounds to me like you're onto something.
I hope so. I hope we are onto something, because I feel like, there's more power in all of us together. Plus, it's more fun doing it with other people.
Would we have requirements like everybody, you'd want everyone to be CAP certified or ECHM or something to that effect?
Those are the things that the leadership are going to have to put together. So the concept is that, HMOTA has this membership, but then in order for HMOTA to stand behind everyone that's doing the work, there's going to have to be certain expectations clinically that you all agree on, whoever's, whether it's leaders, experienced, all those different things. So building that infrastructure is really the idea behind the Creators Club, is how do we build an infrastructure that makes sense, that works for everyone, that both benefits and nurtures HMOTA's growth, but ultimately it betters all of your bottom line.
Yeah, Karen, I love that idea of group and having, in each state to figure it out. And, I think that you are an incredible powerhouse, but you can't do it alone, and you're right. We all want all these things from each other and from you and for ourselves. And there's just no way to do it unless we have leadership teams and have groups and make decisions, and because not everyone could be at every meeting and not everyone could do everything in their state, and there have to be people that are responsible, I think.
I agree, Rebecca.
And we want to keep in mind, I'm noticing in chat, the COTAs.
At one point in time, we had a COTA group because, we're trying to define home modifications, and it keeps going back to the home evaluations, and there's so much more to that than just the home evals. That's one thing we have to do, is develop this business model so that COTAs can run with it as well. I mean, we all need to be able to have a role to play.
Absolutely. I think there's a place for COTAs. I just think they still need supervision. So there's still that, we still need to make sure the structure of businesses are following that and that they get the support they need.
I don't know how that's going to work.
I don't either.
I don't think they need supervision if what they're doing is not billed under occupational therapy services.
Comes down to the
Right.
scope of
If it is,
practice.
though, then it would be.
So there's one service that your business offers, which is an evaluation, in which technically that COTA would need to be supervised for that. I mean, it's outside their scope. They shouldn't be doing the evaluation. So really, they should be doing, they have to be within the OT scope, and that is limiting unless it's follow-up. There's other roles that you can be that are not necessarily under the scope of OT that a COTA could facilitate. They could do.
But when it comes to clinical staff, though, I think it's also just a very gray area, just depending on what population. So there has to be a way to really figure out that because every state practice act it's so regional and state specific that unless it's going to be the leadership team is going to set all these things determined, it kind of gets a bit tricky with if there's a COTA and if the person's Medicare aged. I mean, there's so many other issues in regards to regulations and policies that also overlap in there. But
I just want to make sure from a lane standpoint, and I don't mean to overstep my bounds, but from a lane standpoint, one function of the business is delivering occupational therapy, in which within that field, you have to stay within your scope based on licensure, whether you're an OT, a COTA, whatnot. There are other lines of business that are not just the delivery of occupational therapy in home mod. And so there are things that you can do that are not as an occupational therapy, even though you're licensed as an OT, that are outside the home mod. Is not just the delivery of occupational therapy, is my point. So there are businesses that may build infrastructure beyond just the delivery of occupational therapy. Does that make sense? So I just don't want us to limit the entrepreneurial approach that a COTA can bring to the table because they're not licensed to do everything that an OT is doing.
I mean, ever since COTA started, I feel like what we're doing is defining the industry, setting what we're going to be paid, setting our rate of pay, and defining what we do. I think the process that we should be following is the evaluation,
Billing insurance,
working with the builder, doing the designs, working with architects for the more complex designs, and then doing the follow-up training and providing the accessible fixtures. There's a lot for us to be doing where, we can bring in an income. And then somebody came up with, last time I was taught at one of our meetings, about maybe setting up something like a Tupperware party for people who are aging and have really cool products. I mean, there's so much.
Karen, would this also include some help on how to, it sounds like a lot of people are pretty versed in how to bill insurance, and I'm still really struggling in that, being new with my company and feeling forced, I should say, to bill insurance. Somebody else in the chat just said something about that they they don't bill insurance, and they're more of a consultant. And that's kind of what I felt, or for a consultant for aging in place modifications. That's kind of what I was going for. But I'm also told on the flip side again that, I have to bill because I'm an OT and because it's if they are of Medicare age. And so I feel like I'm going to stand still point with, and I feel like others might too, with can you even promote private pay versus you have to accept and know how to bill all of the insurances?
But I think it has to do with medical necessity more than as much as their age.
And it's case by case too. Again, if you speak with AOTA, and I have, it's case by case, who the client is, all of those things. So I think it's not just an all or nothing. I think it's something, and again, maybe if we did have different boards, that could be something we could help with. But I think it's, it's not, you have to or you don't. Yes, you do have to in some cases, but I think it's, we have to look at it as a little bit more case by case.
I think a lot of people are getting caught up in this direct, clinical model. And I think what Karen has been trying to do with HMOTA, and I think what it sounds like with Brandon, is really creating a home modification industry. And we happen to be OTs. And I think a lot of people are getting caught up in the specific, how it's going to look and how it's going to run. And I think the purpose of this meeting and what Karen is doing with HMOTA is to establish an industry. So a lot of the National Home Builders Association, that's an organization that helps guide and maintain the ethics of the industry. So people have their own business, they build homes, they build the industry, but they seek to that organization as a network to say, hey, here's what I'm looking to do, and working together to create that. But National Home Builders Association isn't saying, you have to put the nail here, you have to do this here, and this person can't do this. And so I think the purpose of this meeting and maybe creating this model is to set the operating standards and not to really get caught up in these specific weeds that I think people are kind of focused on.
And it's
not changing this as an OT.
Oh, well said, Emily. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think that gets back to what is the basics for what we say is a educated and qualified home mod occupational therapist. If they're using and coming to our website, they want to know there's a certain level of education or a certain level of certification. And is that entirely based on OT related training, or do we look at CAP certification? Do we look at executive certificate in home modification from Southern California? What is it that people are going to be looking for and knowing that they're going to get when they come to HMOTA for guidance and finding a qualified person in their area?
We definitely are going to have to define that. I think part of it's going to be a HMOTA certification. We need to have a HMOTA certification. All those other things are good as well. CAPS is best for marketing, but let's change that. Let's make HMOTA best.
Our privilege kicks in.
And the executive home mods is beautiful. I really think everybody should take that regardless.
I'm with Emily. I am really interested in hearing from Brandon what the disruption is going to be from a business model perspective to get people pushing us to be their leaders. That's what I'm really here to find out.
Absolutely. Well, I can talk business all day. When you guys get into the nitty gritty about, clinical and what you're doing, that's where I trust in you. And so I'm here really to provide perspective feedback. This is HMOTA is all of you. It's not Karen. It's not. I'm here to help be a catalyst in any way I can. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to just make sure everyone knows is that the idea right now is how can the members come together to build HMOTA to the next level. That includes creating accountability and all the other things that we talked about. So whether that's a body of knowledge that we want for HMOTA certification, you know, that's usually the starting point, is what's the body of knowledge. Once we have that infrastructure, then what we want to do is we want to take, here's what we represent, this is what HMOTA is, this is what our certification is, etc. Then we have to be able to put together the research in what we do as a unit, that HMOTA members are building continuity in their delivery, the outcomes, the way they're coming together, the resources, the fact that they have more builders that are tapping in, who are the strategic alliances connected to HMOTA, so that then you have what I call a foundation for funding sources to say, well, of course I want to use HMOTA. So my thought process is, to disrupt the industry, you need to come together as a unit. I think you're fighting each other right now, and I don't mean on this call, but I mean more just logistically. When I look up who's in the HMOTA industry and who's trying to create this and create that, you guys are working in a ton of different directions. I don't see at this point that there is a unifying force in home modification industry as it relates to occupational therapy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but first and foremost, I think HMOTA needs to bring everyone together so that we've got one heartbeat, one vision, that together we're focused. The idea in all of this is that each and every one of you are making money. I saw different people making assumptions about HMOTA and money, and I don't want to give a piece to this and I don't want to give a piece to that and all those different things. I'm just summarizing, but I want to be crystal clear. This only works if you're making money, but HMOTA can only work if it's got money to cover the cost. So it's a shared thing. And so the idea is that spending money is calculated and you got to track ROI and you need to have that performance. So I just want to be clear that the companies that are making it big are the ones that have calculated risks, have infrastructure, and are investing in scale. You're never going to hit your financial milestones and goals if you're insular, if you're a 1 or 2 or 3 person show. So how can we build a ship for everyone to thrive and hit their milestones and really come together in that unit? Now, to disrupt any industry, strength is in the numbers. So if I can go right now to a Hartford and say, I have 150 credentialed occupational therapists that have specialty, focuses, and expertise in this alliance, and I can bring the expertise, I can bring evidence of what they've been doing, some of their track record. Each of you bring different pieces. This isn't meant to be a franchise. This is meant to be an alliance. It's meant to be, our idea is that we're using this alliance as a credentialing board to communicate on a global level to get more opportunities for each and every one of you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not perfect yet. This is brainstorming. This is where we connect. Our goal tonight is to connect, for you to learn a little bit about what our vision is. The vision's going to be tweaked. Things are going to come together. We want to know who wants to build the pillars of this. We're not even looking at the monetary side yet. I'm being honest. We want to see how many people buy into this concept. How many people think that HMOTA as an alliance can become this, can become a vehicle in which there's an engine that pushes each and every one who's on the HMOTA train to the next level.
I mean, one thing we need to do is grow our membership so that we can cover all the jobs that come in. We're covering probably 80% of the jobs that come in, and that includes some travel for people. But I would really love to have a lot more OTs to cover more of these jobs, or at least, like we were talking about, different OTs that would cover different regions. And if you got to drive I've had to drive 5 hours to go someplace. But I mean, I'm dedicated to Michigan. I'll take care of anything that needs to be done here, no matter what. So, that's something that, we need to figure out how we're going to do that as well. I mean, Sherry, you might be able to cover Vermont. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So Karen and Brandon, are you guys asking us like, right, for tonight? So you already mentioned like Meals on Wheels, Area Agency on Aging, for other ideas on what we are looking to branch out and do, or do we want to stay focused initially on something, you know, like those two things?
I think right now we're working on the structure as far as how are we going to set this up and how is it going to work. I mean, we're going to need mentors for the newer OTs. You know, we're going to need to figure out what sections of the country we really want to promote and grow. You know, whether, and for me, I feel like what part of the country we decide we're going to grow, or what state or city, is going to depend on what OT is there that's going to be up for the challenge. Because, you know, Brandon said to me, you know, we need to have people who can, you know, we need you to teach people what you do so we can copy it in other states. But you know what? A lot of it is just tenacity, imagination, and getting out there. So I just feel like we need to, you know, identify who's gonna, you know, who's willing to step up and really just take a swing at the ball and just push through it. I mean, it's not for sissies.
And I think, Karen, that would be part of the training too. That, you know, it does take tenacity for sure, but people need to have a game plan. People need to have a structure of what it takes to, you know, do what you've done. And, you know, you can't necessarily teach tenacity, but you can teach the steps to get out there and actually do it. And I think, you know, that would be helpful. I definitely agree with the strength in numbers. I would love to see HMOTA become a vehicle for pushing OT to the top of recognition that OTs are the premier profession to go to for home modifications. So, you know, this is exciting, and I hope this definitely goes somewhere.
Well, I'm hoping that what I really want Brandon to bring to the table, and why I really introduced him to this group, is I would like him to figure out, are you listening, Brandon? I would like you to how to structure HMOTA and how we can set it up so when people come into HMOTA, they don't have to figure it all out again. I want us to all come together and figure the best way out. I mean, I got stuff figured out in Michigan, but I don't have the best way figured out. I've learned so much from so many different people, you know, and I just, we need to just all work together. And that's what I'm hoping he can help us do, structure it and help us to organize our ideas so that we can just figure out how to bring them into fruition quickly, and where are the funding sources, and use, you know, his business savvy to really, you know, pick out what our targets are going to be and how to reach those targets. And that's something that we as a group need to do.
I don't think we have to decide yet, like if it's just going to Meals on Wheels or this. Like, I think, yeah, we could all do different things. You know, maybe someone is specifically aging in place. Maybe someone's this. I think that's, you know, I think we have to look at the bigger picture. And, you know, like they were saying, like build the structure first and then we could figure that all out. I don't think we all have to be doing the same thing. I think there has to be some discussion, but I don't think we all have to be doing the same thing, is my feeling.
So here's kind of what I see as the next step with the structure side, just so that everyone's clear, because I'm hearing and I'm also watching the chat box just to see what I see. And poll keeps coming up. And so I built a survey even before this. Karen and I have been talking for weeks, and I said we need to just survey a couple questions. So we have a couple questions coming out. You know, Karen's going to send the email. After this, we wanted to just do an initial intro, and we're going to be surveying all members, not just the people on this call. And what we're going to be asking you, we appreciate your involvement, is everything from what's your current vision, what's your role in the industry, you know, just really getting that side, but then who wants to be part of building this infrastructure and what their experience is in HMOTA, et cetera. I think we have to, from a HMOTA standpoint, we have to build a body of knowledge in order to have accountability. So I get that it's different state by state, but in general, there's certain things clinically that we know you need to know. And what I always say is, what don't you do? If you say all the things you should not do, usually you'll find what you should do based on that. And so how we structure evaluations, what are the things to say? Obviously, compliance factors, we can have a compliance committee. So one of the ideas is that we're going to build that infrastructure, but let's start with the body of knowledge. But before we even get to that, we need to see who the players are. And that's my point to Karen all along, is not everyone here wants to be a player. Like, some people want, and I don't mean this disrespectful, but some people are like, you know what, I'm riding my lane, and when it makes sense, I'm going to jump on HMOTA's train. We're looking for those who want to create and build the infrastructure and create what that is. And I will tell you, when you give, you get. And I assure you, and Karen can vouch for this, and other people that have worked for me will say, when you give a little, you get a lot. And I guarantee you, if you give a little to HMOTA, you will get a lot. We first need to find the people that want to vocalize, be part of, create, and co-create. This is an opportunity to craft a future that directly impacts your business. But we come together, what's going to be the best server for your businesses? And so the infrastructure of HMOTA has to start with foundational education and accountability that we want to set forth for the industry. If we don't have, quote unquote, the stable vision for what home modification should look like, at least on a global level, how can we market ourselves to others? We have to have that you know, those pillars of knowledge, pillars of accountability. Maybe we create a testing mechanism for those that go through our certification process. But the more consistent in the continuity of the body of knowledge, the more effective everything else will come along. In the interim, HMOTA is in a place where, if we can help grow your businesses, if we can answer questions, talk about why you're an LLC or a PLLC or an S Corp or any of those things, or tax questions or different resources, we're trying to bring not just a body of knowledge on the actual occupational therapy home mod side, but also a body of knowledge of how you can be successful in business. It's quiet.
What's the path to a power position in all of this? I mean, that's what I love about having Karen in this role, is that, and I'm fairly new to this, but for 15 years since graduating OT school, this was my dream, and I thought it was idealistic because I kept running up against a wall. Even in our local billion-dollar healthcare systems that I was trying to reform, to think differently and outside the box. And I'm wondering, what is it going to take for us to move forward, instead of classifying ourselves into three different groups: the people that are going to be on board with it, the people that are going to doubt it, and the people that are going to fight it. Even, I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe even amongst us, who are the people that are just going to ambitiously get on board and move this thing forward despite all the skeptics?
So strength is in the numbers when it comes to data, but when it comes to creating, I'll tell you, if we get 10 HMOTA members that know their craft, I guarantee you we can build this infrastructure right. I don't need 50, I don't need 100. Right now, I think we need 10 people that are like so committed and ready, and the goal, and they're like, well, what do they have in it for them in creating this? Because I'm sure you're wondering. So my commitment to you is, if you commit to HMOTA and you're part of this creators club, I will invest everything I can to help you be successful in your own business model. My personal goal and vision is for those that are really giving back to HMOTA to really scale to the next. This is a passion project. I believe in what you guys all represent. We need to find those that are ready to create and give of themselves, with the idea that, hey, I want to give of myself. I want to build something. I'm going to give my heart, soul, blood, whatever you need. And through that, you're going to grow and prosper, because time is money. And I believe that if we have an anchor point of how do we grow HMOTA to grow you, the rest is in that. It's going to come together. But I think we need a clear vision. And I think it starts with a clinical accountability, and then it goes out from there. If we have a clinical heartbeat, then I can help you sell it. And I can help you build the operations infrastructure. And we can build technology. I've got programmers, whatever. We can redo EMR systems. We can build our own infrastructure, cloud-based, whatever. We can do a lot, but we first have to know what we're trying to achieve. And it starts with, what do we represent as a clinical component for this industry? There's no clinical standard, in my opinion, that's standardized for the industry. And correct me if I'm wrong. And so, yeah. What were you gonna say?
It's still the Wild West. We're the ones who are going to define it. And I think we need to define, all the way from the front to the back as far as home modifications go. And, possibly, and, bringing in builders into HMOTA, letting them join our ranks. And so that way it makes it even easier for OTs to partner with builders. I mean, and the same with designers, but
here's the thing. So we say that and you're like, well, how do I do that? That's where I come in. Anyone that knows me will tell you, I can show you how to communicate, what to say, the way to say it, when to say it. How do you exchange with others to create a shared co-creation game? And so, again, I think the idea is we can make this what we want this to be. We can, we have an entire shopping cart that you could be making money on tomorrow. All the products, all the resources, all the things. So how do we create mailbox money for every member? How do we create training, education, and foundation for every member? How do we create accountability for all the delivery system in terms of, these are the templates that HMOTA has endorsed? And it's not Karen, it's HMOTA. So bringing all your expertise and skill set, whether you're 2-3 years in or you're 10 years, or you're new, but you have different ideas and energy, everyone can contribute in a different way.
This reminds me of back way when you had occupational therapists that were doing hand therapy, and then they developed the CHT credentialing. So, they were therapists that they knew they had this body of knowledge that was this specialized expertise knowledge, and they developed that. So to be a CHT, they have certain credentials, and they have their own license now, the CHT. You have to have 5 years of experience. You have to have 3,000 hours in hand therapy to even be able to sit for the exam to be a CHT. So this kind of reminds me of, back in the early 90s when the OTs were trying to get that recognition. And now you have surgeons that they'll only refer to CHTs. So.
Yep. Actually, it's funny. So my mother-in-law's advanced practice in hands, but never sat for her CHT. Okay. But my brother-in-law has been building his hours for his CHT exam. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, because I used to have a hand therapy clinic back in the day, it is literally the hardest exam out there. I mean, it's mm-hmm. I had an OT that had so many years of experience, and bless her soul, she could never pass that test. So I think my only thing is, I think having that, we'll say, notoriety of that credential is very valuable. I also think, making sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves where we make it harder than it needs to be. I think it's mm-hmm. about functional learning and not just test taking. And that's one thing that I think OT is all about, function. And so how do we create a functional knowledge of body in which we test and hold people accountable for that body of knowledge? And then how do we promote it? And how do we build that expertise? Because if we sign up with 3, 4, 5 national builders that say, hey, we're building these communities and we want your input, how great is that to put on HMOTA's website that we're partnered, whether it be national production or specialty production? And again, I worked in that industry. I know how they work. It's been a long time, but if you have the right call to action, you would be shocked what you can achieve.
So is there a timeline kind of mapped out on what? I know you said you're going to put out a poll, and then. So we're going to have a survey that we're going to have you fill out, and then we're going to have a follow-up meeting in January probably
that will be working with those that are interested in that Creators Club participation, in which we will then navigate who are the right fits to start building that infrastructure. And then we'll probably, within that Creators Club, we'll probably segment out what each kind of like council within that will work on. So we're going to nominate a certain amount of people to work on the body of knowledge. It might be certain regional outreach, all of the technology infrastructure, business infrastructure, everything. Myself, my team can support any needs that HMOTA would like. There's no pressure. I'm here right now on purpose. So my job is just, I love what Karen stands for. She sings to my soul, and anything I can do to help each and every one of you, if I can unlock a spark of new create for you, that's my goal.
So
Brandon, can we,
sorry.
it's okay. Can we define a little bit more clearly what you're seeing the role of the Creators Club is and what that is involving?
Part of my question.
So I think right now the idea is going to be to have, we'll say, how I'm not going to put a number on it, but a group of, ideally, I would say, experienced OTs and home mod that represent different regions of the country that come together and bring expertise in which they will be able to contribute and help create the infrastructure, but they will also have first right of refusal to certain regional contracts that we're bringing in. And so the idea is that by being part of that early phase, that they'll be able to help build infrastructure, but they'll also be able to be rewarded with more referrals initially. Is that fair to say, Karen?
Yeah, and the other thing I'd like to do is bring in people, like for instance, Justin, I'm gonna totally call on you, but I invited Justin Oakley here today, and Bev Van and some other people, because Judy Morris, I'm so glad you're here as well. They're all doing different things and they're very successful at them. And they're different, they kind of focus on different aspects of home mod OT. Justin is just rocking it as far as the construction aspect. Bev Ann's been doing this for a long time as the construction aspect, as the OT aspect. Judy Morris is doing the more grant funding, and actually I'm not exactly sure where you're getting all your money and how you're doing this, Judy, but I mean, there's different people who are approaching this from different angles. And I'm hoping that we can get a lot of these different angles included in what we're doing as far as we're structuring it and as far as like picking off some of these funding sources. So I'm really grateful that people are here that are doing things. Mary Giratano, I think you're out of Pennsylvania, working with different builders. Deb Janzio, I think you are as well. I mean, Jackie's doing a lot right now with Blue Care Network. I mean, we've got a lot of different people who are coming in from all kinds of different angles. And if we can pull all those different angles and markets together, it would just make us a well-functioning machine. So I'm hoping as well we can get a lot of different people from different areas and, you know, leverage your knowledge and your expertise.
Do we know at all yet how we're thinking of like making a payment structure, or how any of that's going to look?
From a monetization of networking with insurance contracts?
No, just in like how much this will cost us. Like I know like a lot of groups are doing it, and each thing you have to pay for it, you know, so just wondering how, if there's been any thought to how
right now we're seeing, and that's why I always say you start with a survey, you see who you have, where you're at, what we want to do. We don't want price to become a barrier. And we also, you know, different pieces will include different things. And so it's not like we've come up with, oh, there's going to be a $10,000 membership or this or that. I think right now what we're trying to see is who first is interested, like who's ready to create, and I think from there then we can budget, and we can create budgets together that seem fair and reasonable, so that, you know, there's an infrastructure, but everything you do you have to see a return on investment for. So I get that, So if and when that pricing model comes up, it's going to have something where you see enough value to it. But to come up with a price right now would be like shooting from the hip, because we don't even know what you need yet. It might just start with, hey, let's get together, let's divide the work, let's see where we're at, and then now we're ready for this level of infrastructure.
Right.
Cost and time and money for us to get this as a group. But
Okay.
this isn't a money play. I just want to be honest with you. This right now is about unifying a force and trying to disrupt the industry. And then if we can disrupt the industry, the tide will rise. We'll all win from it. But it's going to take some elbow grease. It's going to take knowledge and commitment to co-create, because that's the big, I always say, I'm like, how are we co-creating? How are you doing it? And I work with entrepreneurs day in and day out. And the one thing they say is like, they can't do it alone. Even if their name is entrepreneur, it's their team. And so we're trying to build a team here. Real quick, if you don't mind, Karen, just because I know we had promised some tips and strategies, can I give a couple just so that they get some content from this and not just the group? So real quick, I'm going to go over a couple big things, high ticket things for you to be successful in 2021. I hope it's helpful, and then we'll leave the rest for discussion. But one question that was asked was how to overcome fear. I love this question. So I always say you have to tap into your fear. You have to use it as fuel. In my book, actually, I talk about this, that the idea of fear is either you run away from something or you embrace it. So I always use fear as a motivator to troubleshoot. If this happens, what do I do? So I have 100 employees in Los Angeles, California right now. For those who know what's going on in Los Angeles, it's like under crazy COVID restrictions and everything. Do I have fear? Yes, I have fear. I mean, it could impact one of my businesses dramatically, but the idea is I utilize it as, in my opinion, like a Russian roulette. If this happens, what do I do? So I use fear to funnel my strategy. So I have 5 different plans. If tomorrow we shut down, this is how we do it. If the next day we're half open, this is what we do. If all of a sudden our telehealth clearances dry up, this is how I'm going to overcome it. I don't run away from fear, but I embrace it in that sense. And so I personally find that some of my best concept strategies and implementation have come from harnessing my fear. And so that's something, obviously, for whoever's in our Creators Club. If you have a fear, we can break it down, we can strategize, we can name different things. But I really want you to understand that fear can actually be an ally if you channel it right. We talked a little bit about COTA's roles. I know that there's a huge amount of kind of questions and whatnot. I think that's something that the group can definitely define. And what I will say is I absolutely think COTAs have a role in this. I absolutely think we have to embrace what they bring, both clinically to the clinical role within their scope, but also what they bring from an experience level. There's so much to make this go right as a business. And it's not just the clinical evaluation or the delivery of care. And so how do we tap in on all different levels? And I think we need to have our COTAs speak up to say, this is the value. So here are my 3 strategies to increase revenue in 2021. So real quick, 1, mailbox money. You've got to be able to make money off things other than your time. So whether it's reselling products, whether it's strategic relationships, how are you creating support through the distribution? One of the things I know is that, Karen's got this incredible opportunity for people to literally sell products, e-commerce on their web, really easy, and you can make money tomorrow doing it. And it's so simple. So that's one thing. The other is reselling services connected to strategic relationships. If I bring in this subcontractor or this builder or this general contractor in different ways, there's ways for you to get money in that from your business model, not as an OT making the referral, but as an overall home modification industry, utilizing resources and team where you can make money in those circumstances. And then the last thing on the increased revenue, we talked a little bit about caps, but I think you can tap into this caps builder. I've gone on over 25 caps builders websites, and they're hurting. They don't even know you exist out there. They're literally trying to sell that they can do the evaluations, even though they say they're not an OT. So I think there is a huge, huge, huge need for that. And I think it's really, really, really important. The next thing I want to talk about is 3 key strategies to close new clients. So I'm going to give you one of my favorite ideas, and you may hate it, but I believe realtors are a huge lead magnet, and I've seen it firsthand in this industry for home mod. Specifically, we're talking like, you know, senior home mod, aging in place, those kind of things. But one of the most successful actions I've facilitated is actually creating a closing gift basket for the realtor for a senior living community or an area where there's aging in place going on, where in that basket we've got all functional things that the home buyer gets, really easy little trinkets and things like that with your business card. Sometimes you sell that basket to the realtor, sometimes you give it because it's a calling card. And I think it's an incredible opportunity to close new clients through that referral source. Obviously, I'm going to plug it, but participating in HMOTA's upcoming Creator Club, the goal is that we're funneling referrals for you, that we're growing your business. And then the last thing I'm going to focus on, and you may be doing this, but if you're not familiar, local search marketing, I've done some searches and a lot of you are not hitting it out of the park, unfortunately. But Google My Business is the way to do local search marketing. We can do a whole webinar on it, but we've got a whole digital marketing agency. This is what we do. There are 3 key things that I want you to look at when you're looking at communicating to Google through Google My Business: prominence, proximity, and relevance. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to geotag your pictures so that you're hitting regions beyond just your address in your Google My Business. So I think it's really important that you understand that when people put in keywords today in Google, it goes to what's called the map pack. So there is a way for your Google My Business to show up in that map pack in the top 3 based on your key searches, and you can geotag different locations so that you're pulling up within a radius and not just your main address. We can definitely talk about these things in greater detail, but I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you some insight. I'm here for you. I believe in each and every one of you, and ultimately my goal and hope is that through HMOTA, we can unlock all of your private practice and entrepreneurial dreams, visions, and goals in disrupting this industry and meeting and exceeding the need that is out there.
I don't know about everyone else, but I'm all about disrupting.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'm here. If anyone has any questions, you can plug away, ask questions. You are sitting on an opportunity. It is a rocket. It's how we come together to launch the rocket. And if we have enough fuel, I think you're going to blow it out of the park.
Thank
I love
you.
the idea of the Google business thing. I think we should definitely look into that as soon as possible, because all of our websites are just sitting there hanging out doing nothing as much as we work on them. So if people can't find them, they're not useful.
Exactly. And you're not hitting all the keywords. I recently did a keywords search in your areas, and you're not hitting them. You should have 30, 40, 50 ways to say what you do, and you have to do it through the end user viewpoint. So some of it is product searches, some of it is keyword searches, but those are the things that we're missing. And it's funny because I did a keyword search, I won't name names, but with someone who was on here, and we found a bathroom company that was listing home modification, and they specifically detailed out that they were not an occupational therapy company, like literally stating, we're not OTs, don't ask us. And so I think that's really interesting if people are looking for the OTs and they call this bathroom company and they can't even find it. And so the first thing this person did was call them to be the OT for this bathroom company. And I think those are the opportunities that are out there if we just tap in all our resources and people power.
So what are some of the keywords we should be using
So
Geez.
I will tell you, Karen's not going to like this, but one of the most searched terms is aging in place. I know she hates it, and I feel bad saying it, but it's one of those things that you gotta tap into, just because why miss out on the search of it, you know? Also, it was functional modification was an interesting thing. Functional home remodeling. These are just different keywords and things that people were putting in. I think using the ramps, using the grab bars, using all those keywords to the most common things that you put in place. I think even, it sounds funny, but tapping into the whole lighting industry, the technology and the lighting and being all that ADA compliance and things like that, those are keywords you can tap into. People are searching. So, you know, bathroom remodel, functional bathroom remodel. Sounds funny. You're like, well, maybe they're looking at something else. A lot of people don't even realize what they need. And so sometimes hitting these keywords, you can be a designer and you don't even know it. And the design is to say, hey, when we're remodeling this bathroom and we're looking for your functional safety, you know, fall prevention, home safety was a big keyword. Like, these are just things that the worst comes to worst, they call you and say, I'm looking for home safety. What do you offer? But that's a doorway. That's someone calling. How many calls a day do you get right now is my question.
Was that a joke? Sorry.
And it's funny because I'm seeing this with all ages from 50 on up these days. People are looking to age in place. People are looking to make these accommodations. I know, you know, my in-laws moved in with us to have aging in place set up in a specific way, even though, you know, they're in their late 60s. I don't think this has to be 80-year-olds. And I think sometimes we get stuck thinking it's 80-year-olds. And I think this is 50s, 60s, 70s. This is the wheelhouse of where people are investing for their future. You know, I coached a client this morning. I'm not exaggerating. He's getting $400 for a physical therapy session from insurance. $400 paid by insurance. We don't know what we don't know. We have to come together so that we can bridge and say, hey, I'm getting this way, and I'm getting that way, and this is the body of knowledge. This is our accountability financially of what we should be able to hold ourselves to. How did he get it? He told the insurance, he did a study to say this is the average rate in this area, and he billed out of network, and they covered it. They covered $800 for an eval and treatment. Pretty incredible. Cigna. We're not talking Medicare. So there's things out there that I think together, coming together and looking at marketing, revenue cycle management, efficiency operations, and then our clinical knowledge, body of knowledge, we can come together to really build a foundation for everyone to grow.
So I have a question. What do you think about the Google ads? Do you think it's worth paying for? Do you think that is something that works?
So that's a loaded question, but I will tell you that Google ads works when it's a defined thing that you're going for. So I'll say it this way. If you're doing a Google ad on someone that you know is searching better than you, then I would do a Google ad connected to the keywords of that. But I find that a lot of the times we're doing the wrong keywords and we're wasting money on Google ads. So I would optimize your map pack functionality first, so that you're coming up in the top 3 results when someone Googles it. Because, so I want you to look at, if you Google something, you're going to first see sponsored, then you're going to see the map pack. The difference is people don't always look at the sponsored because it just looks like text. Whereas when you get to that map pack, you see reviews and it comes to life. And so what happens is it's like, oh, look, functional home, 25 5-star reviews. I want them. And Karen didn't even pay anything for it. She just optimized her Google My Business page. Now, there are so many ways for you to optimize your Google My Business, including your blog can auto-populate articles to that component so that all of those articles are searchable in your Google My Business.
I have a question about a different market. So like you said, Brandon, that it seems like we're mostly focusing on like 50 and older. I was wondering about what everyone thinks about um, like expanding our services to kids with disabilities as well.
Totally.
I think that's a great way to go. I do quite a bit of kids with disabilities, and I do mostly catastrophic injuries, just because those are the people who need whole home remodels and additions.
So is there a large market for that, or is it not really as lucrative as older adults?
I'll say it from this way because I have a strong peds background. There's a huge opportunity there.
And there's a lot of rich grandparents too.
Yes.
Parents will spend money on their kids. I think there's a huge opportunity, not just for disability, but also, I'm not saying you want to go in this way, but these home sensory gyms are a huge moneymaker. The people that are playing in the game are awful at it. I know everyone that's playing in that game. You could easily architect what you want. I could even connect you with a way to get all the equipment wholesale. There's amazing opportunities if you want to get into the PEDS home mod. It's, put in a ramp, do all that infrastructure, but then there's also the capability of low stim rooms, how you do the lighting, the sensory. I mean, there's so much there if you want to get into the pediatric home mod space as well.
And that's something we need to define with the Creators Club. Where do we want to go with that? I know in Pennsylvania, they've got $20,000 for any household with an autistic person in it for home mods. There's different things.
Yeah, and we were talking about CODAs earlier, so I'm going to go back on the CODA route. One of the greatest people I've had experience with is Alex Lopicolo. If you know who Alex is, he is the king of swings. He is a CODA. The guy is just incredible, and I know he would innovate with us. He can actually get us and source stuff overseas if we need it. We don't all have to go through I won't name names, but the expensive people. So there's a lot of ways that we can tap into resources where it's like, okay, now we can have the home gym website that we can sell products and bring those in at different wholesale levels. We just need to know what you all want to accomplish.
I have another question. Sorry. Oh, so I'm still a student. I haven't so I don't have an actual business yet. But I was wondering, so when I do actually get my own home mods business, would it be feasible to target kids and older adults, or would that be like not a good idea to be that broad?
You want my opinion or Karen's? The two different viewpoints. Karen, I'll let you go first.
I would say home mods are home mods. I mean, if you have a specialty and you can serve a market, then you should do that. I would start with whatever you're strongest at, though, instead of trying to hit both of them at the same time. Develop one and then develop the other. What do you think, Brandon?
So I will say it this way. I think you have to start with one and you have to really build on it and you have to grow, because what I worry about is you're growing two different businesses at the same time. And I want you to learn from me in the sense that I had at one point a pediatric outpatient clinic, a neuro adult clinic, and a hand therapy clinic. And I'm just being honest. Yes, they were all OT-PT speech, but the problem was that from a marketing standpoint, insurance reimbursement, funding, they were totally different models. Documentation was different, everything. So I'm not opposed personally to you doing it all, but I say create your craft on one so that you have the time to build a separate infrastructure. Because if you try to do it all at the same time, I'm worried that you're going to muddy your waters from like operations, efficiency, your systems, you're going to blur things. And what I always say is if I throw 25 variables at the same time to you, there are going to be balls that drop. But if I give you 7, 7, 7, 7, you're going to execute functionally usually much more effectively. I would just say that try and get one operating basis. If you're serving different demographics, that's fine. But like, it's kind of like what I would say is like your intake process, your infrastructure, your evaluation, your resources, tapping in. Just try and get a playbook that's manageable. I'd hate for you to overstretch yourself, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, we're gonna wrap this up right now because we've gone over by a little bit. But we're gonna be sending out a poll. It'll go out tomorrow. And so everybody, you know, please fill it out. What we're gonna try to figure out is what direction we wanna go, who's, you know, up for helping with the structure. And I think that that can be done on a lot of different levels. You know, some people have more time, have more energy, and are more dedicated than others. I mean, we're just trying to feel this out, where we want to go and how we want to structure it. Without a doubt, we're ready to move to the next level and grow exponentially. And I think, you know, if we can put together a set of people who are willing to like be the creators, be the leaders, you know, it will do nothing but benefit those people and everybody else who is involved in HMOTA. Because, you know, we're all in this together, and together we can build the market that will serve us the way we deserve to be served. It's been so irritating to be in a profession where I can't just build a lucrative business very simply. And so, I mean, that we need to change that. We need to make this market something that will serve us in the way we need to be served. So get ready for the poll. Please fill it out and get it back to us. And then we'll probably we're going to have a meeting at the end of December. We may go over the poll a little bit then, but we're definitely going to be doing it in January with Brandon.
Thank you all. It was beyond a pleasure. I look forward to providing insight, motivation, and some energy whenever you need it. Thanks, everyone.
Brandon, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Very informative. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.